Welcome back to KMG Power Sports. I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be working on this Hawk 250. This one is one that was just recently purchased by one of our customers, and as you may know, we are in the South. On my recommendation, he opted to have an oil cooler installed on this. There are two types of oil coolers that can go on these. More traditional one. It has, of course, the oil cooler part. And what it does, it replaces the oil filter screen with this little unit right here, which contains a screen on the inside, very similar to what you find when you drain your oil, and puts that in line with the oil line and takes your original oil line or oil screen and replaces it with this unit right here, which bolts into the side of the block, and then your lines attach here. With that, you have two lines coming off the bottom, and they're going to come up the bike to wherever your oil cooler is located. I've done one of these before on one of these bikes and ended up mounting it up in here on the left side where the left fairing is, and that allows more air to come into it and also get it out of the way of any rocks that come off of the tire. Now, the other style there is, and this is becoming more and more popular. What it does is replaces the valve cover. It does have two connections on the valve cover where these lines connect to, and then your oil cooler again sits somewhere up in the top. These are nice because you've got a lot less line, and it does not affect the way that you drain the oil on the engine. It just simply sits on the top. It's its own system. These work very well on some of the older ones, the ones that were made by Hayosin, the older Hawks, and also anything that uses this engine until they went to this style, which is the counterbalanced engine. When they went to the counterbalanced engine, they changed the valve cover. I've not had one of these apart, so I'm not sure if I can just simply slip this one off without taking half the bike apart. And I'm also not quite sure if this is going to fit. But we're going to try this one first. And if this doesn't work, then I can always go back to the traditional type oil changer that's taken off of the oil screen area. All right, I've removed the bolts on this valve cover here, but all the plastics are still on. So let me go ahead and take these out. There's three of them, two on the right, one on the left. And then you take your cover, you lift it up, and slide it off the side. Same thing you do when you go to adjust your valves. That exposes them, and then you can set your clearances there. Now, holding these side by side, yeah, this one's got the cap for the valve adjustments, which I don't know why anybody would ever use these because you can hardly get to them, and it's so easy just to remove the entire cover with three bolts. Much nicer, thicker, and it looks like it's going to fit better. Obviously, you want to make sure that this gasket isn't damaged in any way, because it will give you a pretty nasty oil leak if it does. All right. Will it fit? There it is. Okay, I have easy access to both of my points, one here and then another one on the other side. So with this, I'm going to have much shorter hoses to go into the oil cooler. So this is definitely going to be the setup that we're going to go with. These bolts in here. And I'm just going to put them loosely because I may have to take this back out to put in the banjo bolts that are included with the kit. I go to set up all of the routing of the hoses and everything. So two of these go into the cooler itself, and you want to have the gaskets on both sides of your banjo bolt like so. So This end is going to go, I probably will do that end with the clamps at the oil cooler, and then use the crimped end on the valve cover. I'm just going to see how everything fits to make sure it's nice and tidy. All right, what I've done here, instead of mounting it down here, which is with the provided clamps is where it would normally go, which makes no sense to me because it's right in the way of the tire and everything else, I have gone and obtained a couple of 1 1/4 inch muffler clamps. So I install them this way, open up these holes a little bit to accommodate the larger bolts, and now this will simply slip onto these clamps and sit up in here towards more away from the tire, and also where it's going to get cleaner air. Let me go ahead and attach the rear nut on this, and I'm keeping everything loose right now because with the attachments of the hoses and everything else, a lot of stuff is going to still need to be moved around. So in order to keep the mobility, don't tighten anything until the whole job is finished. All right, now this is going to allow me to put the cooler clear back here. I'm clear of the exhaust pipe, and everything is going to work nicely. Now this has got, here's my supply line. Again, routing is going to be important. You want to make sure you don't kink the line anywhere, and you want to keep it away as far as possible from your exhaust pipe. All right, after thinking about this for a moment, I decided to change the routing of this hose. I'm going to go ahead and route it around the outside of the frame. It is still going to clear the fender and not create any problems there. The reason being, I didn't want to have to push the oil up a hill and have it come back down the other side, just for the sake of the system draining on its own whenever you do an oil change. I decided I think that's probably going to be a better way to go. So what I'm going to do, for everything bolted together lightly, and I have my protective spring on my hose. Needs to be about, okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and snip this hose. I think I'm going to just leave the spring where it is. I don't think I'm going to need to shorten it for this, and get it tucked in here nicely, that when I bring this back it will fit. So better off to cut it a little too long the first time, because well, you can always cut off more, but it's hard to add length to it later. All right. This dude pushed up on here. However, the spring is not much fun to deal with on this. And you want to make sure you have this hose pushed over all the barbs on this banjo fitting, because if you don't, it'll slip off, blow your oil everywhere, and then it'll be engine overhaul time. Not a good plan. All right, that is all the way on there. Snug up this hose clamp. And do not put the hose clamp on the outside of the spring. Make sure that it only contacts the hose itself. There we go. This one you want to go ahead and tighten right away. Good. Move this around. I may have to zip tie this back a little bit just to make sure it stays clear of the fender. You don't want anything rubbing ever. And then snug up this banjo bolt. And also this entire mechanism here can be twisted back a little. And let me see if I can get it underneath this bracket here, as far back as possible. See, that's about it right there. So that sits in there nicely. Now the routing of the other hose is going to be important as well. is right here, coming off the head. This may actually be a little bit longer than the top line. And unfortunately, just for clearance issues, I'm going to have to come down and back up on this. So it will give it a little bit of a loop like so. Keep it off of the cylinder. I'm going to have to snip this guy right about here. Put on your clamp before you push it on, and bring it afterwards. Push everything out a little bit. Right, that one went much easier. All the way on. Get the clamp off of the spring. Nice and tight. I would say right about here. It's next to the cylinder, so it's not going to get too awfully hot, not like it would next to the exhaust. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and snug everything up, get it all in position, and see what needs to be zip tied. Anything that you find is kind of loose or touching something or runs the risk of rubbing against something. Last thing you want to do is rub through an oil line again. So let's get everything snugged up. Still trying to decide whether or not I like this. I have to give myself enough clearance. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave the slack on here, because when this valve cover needs to be removed for valve adjustments, it needs to go off on the right side. So if I leave some slack, it'll still be easy to remove it for future service. Snug. Spark plug cap back on. Everything here is tidy, looks good. Double check the pantries on the other side. So I didn't tighten everything up, so now I can still get in here and snug everything up without getting into a tight spot. So you need to make sure that these are snug. There's that. Top one. And there's that. And the top one here on the valve cover. Just a little bit, just to make sure this stays off the cylinder. Right. Now I can bring this back. Still having a little bit of a clearance issue with the exhaust there. See how much higher I can go. There we go, up higher. And back. nothing touching the cylinder. That's my spot. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the clamp on this exhaust clamp. A little tricky to get to. This is one that's definitely going to have to be checked over riding it for a few miles in case things kind of settle in a little bit. The bracket doesn't come loose. Okay, the installation is complete. Valve cover is tight. Everything is on. The lines are on. Ended up again routing the line around the outside of the frame. Give it a little zip tie. Keep it up off the fender. Nothing's touching anything important. Same here. This one comes down. Gives a little bit of a hoop, and that's going to allow somebody to still go in there and adjust the valves as necessary. All right, well, let's give it a quick crank up and check for leaks. And you got to give it a moment, allow the oil to come up. No leaks. No leaks. And of course you want to check it again after the first ride. Make sure everything is nice and dry as it should be. Fittings are nice and dry. One thing you do want to keep in mind though is when you do this mod, you are going to need a little bit more oil inside the engine because the oil cooler and the valve cover, they do take up a little bit of oil that you're going to have to add to keep your level where it was. Case in point, here's our little side glass. The bike is completely level and the oil has just kind of disappeared on me. So what I'm going to do is give it about 100 milliliters and see where it's at after that. Alright, so I ended up adding a little over 200 milliliters. We've got the level to where it needs to be. And again, when you go to start it, you should drop the level down, pull it right on down. You know your oil pump is working well. Back off. Creeps back up. Okay, perfect. Well, I hope you found this informative. Again, there's a couple of different styles. We do prefer this one, but either one of the styles are going to be readily available. Jump online. I'm sure you'll find one that you'll like. I prefer to install them off to the side rather than in the middle. And I think this is going to be an installation that the customer is going to be very, very happy with. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you have any questions or there's anything else that you'd like to see, be sure to leave it in the comments below. And then I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.